we turned on the 2nd mile road. We pushed it down. We're about 8 miles down. The fields, it's April of 1976. The snow has just melted. Some of the snow is still on that dike area there. And all the water's melted, and it looked like we were in the middle of an ocean. So there's just the road, and there was like maybe, 6 inches of water all the way through the field. So it was just all this water. And we looked around, and these orange things were all over the place. The one was on the bridge, but the oranges were sitting above the water, and it looked like two of them sitting on top of each other. But then when we looked close, it was the reflection off the water. So these orange things were around, and we turned around, they were all over the place, all these orange things in the field.
Oh, it's moving faster now.
And what we had done is we had come down here, and where the dike is there, it's a drain. They were draining water off the fields. There's a bridge that went over between the first dike and the second dike. So we came up, and we had chased it all the way down. Always seemed to be the same distance in front of the car, but when we got here, then we could see him sitting on the bridge because there was a frame of reference. Him sitting on the bridge. So we go to the bridge, and we get on the bridge, and it's gone. So we figured it's got to be under the bridge. So we're looking under the bridge, and we're looking around or whatever. We had flashlights and stuff. Nothing. So we keep going, and now it's not in front of us. We go over the second dike. You'll see the second dike there. We go down the second dike, and then it turned around and said, "Jim, it's back at the bridge again. Come on, let's go back." So we turn, and we drive back on the bridge again, and it's gone. So I said, it's got to be under the bridge. It's got to be under this bridge. But the water was so high, it was just underneath the bridge, and there was snow on the edges or whatever. So we looked and we looked and we looked, couldn't find it. So then we drive back, and that's what happened here. Same thing. We drove back here. We got to about here, and I looked back and I said, and he was driving. And I said, "Jim, it's back at the bridge. This time, let's walk." So what we did, got out of the car. These orange things are all over the field. These orange things with reflecting off the water. So I got an 8mm movie camera, and he's got a binoculars. So we start walking. So I take 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. And I got an 8mm going. So 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. And we're walking along, and as we go there, then suddenly, as we're going there, suddenly I realize, like, oh my God, it's right there. It's like I'm looking at it, and this is where I see it alongside the railing of the bridge, and it's this far from the railing. I can see it clear as day. It's really, really bright, intense orange, glowing, and yet it wasn't lighting up the bridge. Just this faint glow, but it was this far from the bridge, and I'm looking like, what's the deal with the light? It's so weird. And then I said to my friend, I said, "Here, hold the camera. I'm going to jump on it." Because we'd gotten close. It evaded us twice. We'd gone on, passed, and got back a second time. So this time, I'm going to get it. Before it goes under the bridge, I'm going to get it. He said, "Well, hang on." I said, "I think there's one on top of the car." And he said, "What?" And so I said, "Give me the binoculars." And I turned around, and I looked, and on the top of the car, we're looking into the north. It looked like the sun coming up in the north. What it was this orange glow, like orange thing, like a half sphere on top of the car, and this orange smoke hanging down the side of the car. And I go, "There is one sitting on top of the car." And I started to run, took about 3 steps, and I go, turn around. Of course, the one at the bridge is gone. So then we figured, well, we're committed now. So we started to run. We ran. And then I could see it moved onto the front hood, and we could see it as we were coming, and it's middle of the night. So it looked like the car inside was on fire because you could see it through the windows. It looked like the inside of the car was on fire. By the time we had come here, it had gone in, I guess it had gone into the water or whatever. It wasn't here anymore. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, this is like, what are you going to do? So I put my hand on top of the car to see if it was hot. I didn't know what to do. So I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, well, what do you do? And I look, "Jim, it's back at the bridge. Come on, let's go." And he told me later that he had checked to make sure the keys were in the car because we had left the keys in the car. And he was just petrified. And I said, "Come on, let's go back to the bridge." He said, "No, I don't want to go." And then I said, no, come on. I got close. I want to touch it. I want to jump on it. "No, I don't want to go." And it was his car. So we had to go home. And then 20 years later, I see him in Winnipeg, and he said, this is when he says to me, he says, "Are you still in UFOs?" And I go, "Yeah." He said, "You always were the gullible kind." And I said, "What are you talking about? You were so scared. I don't want to go back to the bridge." He knew exactly what I was talking about. And he sort of backed away from me. And I said, "I can't believe you're saying this. I mean, if you haven't seen anything, then you can say it. But if you were there, you were so scared you didn't want to go back." And so that's the way that was left. But We never did go back to the bridge. And then the next night, he came up with his friends. That's where we started driving. You see these mile roads are completely straight. He came with his friend. I remember him and his friend, and they were driving with no lights on, 60 miles an hour, and these things were all over the place. They were chasing them down these roads, and we were chasing them down the roads. They were on all these roads here. We'd flash the lights, and that's when we learned to flash the lights, and it would respond. So we'd flash the light at it, and then everybody had their cameras. So get ready. We'd flash the lights, and it would flare up, and then people would start shooting, and then the thing would flare back, go back down. It would be this triangle of lights. We'd watch it with binoculars. So it'd be a triangle of lights, and it would flare. It would just flare, 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 flare with touches, and the flare, and it would go up, and the third one would light up, and then the thing would flare up. And we could tell whether it was a car because of the lights coming off it. If there's no lights coming, then we'd know it was one of these ground light things. So we did a lot of filming from about 4 miles the whole year. And then what happens is, like you're checking for sightings and stuff like this. I just said, okay, I've seen it. I've seen it. I don't need to see it. Now I need to figure out what's going on, because I could have come out here probably for 10 years and I couldn't get anything. It was sort of like you can get the sighting, but in terms of figuring out what's going on, I figured I had to move past the sighting because I'd seen so much. I can show you the photographs. I have hundreds of photographs that we were taking, infrared photographs, color photographs, and we were shooting it. In the end, it was sort of like, okay, so what do we do next? We can't surround it. We can't do anything with it. I said, somebody's got to know what's going on. And that's when I started to look at first I went to the Canadian government, then I went to Penn State University president, then I went to the president of the United States, then I went to the CIA guys. And then in the end, they didn't want to talk. So that's when I went to experiencers. And someone said to get on the ship. And I said, oh, really? And that's when I started to move more away from sightings into the experiencer thing. Because I figured these people know what's going on. They will actually tell you what's going on. I'm not going to cover it up like the government. But I bet you I took over 100 people on tours here, and they'd all see it. It would be the same thing every day. Oh, it's a car. No, it's not. Like, and then go through that. Oh, it's a farmland. Okay, we go down the road, and it was that thing. Oh, let's surround it. No, we tried to surround it. No, let's try it. And we'd waste hours trying to surround it, stuff. And in the end, I just got so frustrated. I just said, nah, it's not giving me any answers. It did, but it did give me the assurance that it's for real. I knew, like, I don't care what anybody says. I was like this one here. I was close enough that I thought if I ran, I could touch it. So it wasn't 50 yards. It was more like 50 feet or 25 feet or something like that. It was sort of like, here I go. I'm going to go. And so it was dramatic, close, and real. And then it was written up in the paper. So they wrote it up. And I was known as sort of the crazy guy. This is the guy who's going to jump on this UFO. It was trying because I always had to take these people out to go through all this skeptical stuff like that.
But it seemed to have an intelligence to it.
Oh, absolutely.
It was playing cat and mouse.
Oh, yeah,
all the
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. That's why I said to these people, I said, no, you can't surround it. We've done this. We rolled in the ditch. We went around. So we'd go down the mile road. We'd come around. We'd estimate, okay, it's halfway down the mile road. Then we'd go down the back mile road and we'd come across where we think it would be and come in from the backside. And then we'd go there and it would still be behind us. And then we go, it's one time we came across that 303, it was 2 miles over, come down. We came across one night and it was really close down the road. But other than that, and we were out here 100 times, at least 100 times, and it just got so frustrating. It was sort of like, yeah, and I can show you the photographs, just photograph after photograph after photograph, and yet it's still just a light on the horizon. Now with your camera stuff, you might be able to pick it up better. Because I bring guys out with these huge 2,500 millimeter telephotos, and they would set it up, but it would be summertime, and you couldn't see anything because there was heat coming off the road, and it was just the screen was just going like this with all this heat and stuff coming off the road. So we tried everything we could think of, and in the end, there was nothing left to do. It is absolutely for real because I was so close, and yet it was so frustrating because it was sort of like, yeah, it's real, but I still want to know what this actually is.